essential oils, immortalium, I mean, it goes on, MK collab. So not all of their children get attention all the time. So I'm here to inform you of the opportunity of the MK collab and tell you why it's here at Longevity and why we are doing it and what a fantastic opportunity it is. But in order to get to that fantastic opportunity, I have to kind of tell you about the journey and back to Dr. Wallach with his voice. So basically, you know, who am I? Where did I come from? As Dr. Wallach's asking me in my head. I've been in the fashion industry for close to 30 years. I've got 4 children, 33, 32, 27, 22. I've got 7 grandkids and 1 more to come in April. So it's always been a very full house. I work with my husband. That's another story we'll talk about some other time. But I'm also Burmese. I was born in Rangoon, Burma, and I lived there till I was 6 years old. Back to my heritage, which is part of the DNA. I believe that DNA is not only something that's in your cells, but it's also in your experiences, and the experiences that are passed down from your heritage. So, I was born in Burma. Both my parents are Burmese. My 4 grandparents are Burmese. My 4 great-grandmothers were Burmese, but my 4 great-grandfathers were Portuguese/Filipino, German, French, and English. So there is some sort of throwback there. And I kept trying to search for why I have this passion to make clothing and to see what it does for a woman, for people, to put it on and have that new feeling, and why has it always been there for me? And I continue to ask my mom lots of questions about Burma because I was only 6 when I left. But she started to tell me some things that kind of went back, and these are some of the stories I shared with Dr. Wallach. During World War II, for instance, my mother's family, I think she was maybe 8 years old, my mother's family lived in a village in Burma, and Burma was in the middle of the World War II. I mean, it was bombed, they had to flee their home. And so they fled their home with only what they could take on their backs. My mother had 4 children, 4 of her siblings rather, and my grandma and my grandpa, and they fled to the jungles. And lo and behold, in the jungle, they came upon a Korean family that was, they had a church, it was a Korean minister and his family. And they literally hid them in their home, in their basement, for 3 years. And that's a family of 8. So my mom goes on to tell me that my grandpa felt so humiliated as a man that he couldn't support his family. He kept trying to come up with creative ways to help contribute to this household that was taking care of my mom's family. And so she told me that he started to, they could watch the American soldiers being let down from the airplanes and parachuting down. So after they would land, they would leave their parachutes, and my grandfather would go out to the fields, and he would take the parachutes, and he would start to make clothing. He would take some of the parachute fabric, and he would unravel it, because they didn't have thread during the war, so he would make spools of thread. It would make shoes. So I was like, wow, that is So after the war, which they survived, they went back to their home. They did lose one child during the war. Very sad, my mom's youngest brother. So when they went back to their home, they found their home. It was standing. It obviously needed to be renovated and fixed. But my grandmother grew up in a convent, and so she was very educated. She was educated by the British nuns. My grandfather was also in the brothers' home, which is the equivalent of the convent for boys, and he too was educated by the British pastors, etc., that were there. And so when they came back, my grandmother decided that, the 4 children she had left, she was really going to sew into them, and that because of her education, she was going to teach them every morning. So she fashioned some, very generic English books, mathematical books, etc. So every morning at 7 o'clock, my mother says that they would have to roll up their mats, put them away, and she would begin to teach them about life, about the world outside of Burma. And she did this for months, and pretty soon the neighbors started asking my grandmother, well, can we send your kids? And pretty soon it was the whole village. And fast forward to when I was born, my grandmother had 3 of the largest private schools in Burma. She had thousands of students, hundreds of teachers, and they became very wealthy from this little school in her heart to teach her children and to teach other kids in Burma. So that was all amazing. My mom met my dad, and they were pretty, in the lap of luxury because of all the schools and everything. My father was a banker. He worked for the British Charter Bank. And one day, I was told that we were moving, and we were going to America, and that my dad was leaving that week, because back then, it took him 3 or 4 years to even get a visa to come here. So no one understood why he wanted to leave. He had a custom home, he had a great job, and all he could say was, I want to take my family to a place where there is a land of opportunity and they can have a future. Which everyone thought he was nuts, because we had a phenomenal future there. We had a